you read a paragraph that begins, developed by Monsanto in the 1950s as a pesticide, manufactured from petrochemicals with a range of uses, including preventing rubber cracking, and you know you're in for a wild ride on the hyped horror train. So this chemical that he's talking about here is a chemical called Ethoxyquin, which is used to stabilise the fish oil in the fish feed. Richard says in the book, Ethoxyquin could lead to cancer in exposed animals, and provides a link to this scientific paper. So let's have a look at it, because he's actually been a little bit selective. The article actually says Ethoxyquin was reported to both enhance and inhibit genetic changes induced by known carcinogens. On the other hand, it can also lead to cancer in exposed animals. So it both treats cancer and perhaps could cause cancer. So the jury is out. But I'll forgive him on that one, in terms of I won't regard him as being deliberately misleading. Perhaps he was just mistaken in his interpretation of that statement, because he can't even get the name of the author correctly. It's Alina Blashchich, Richard, not Elena. So then he quotes Professor Edmund Maser, who says that Ethoxyquin can be mutagenic and toxic. You need to eat a lot of farmed salmon to reach those levels, but people who eat a lot of salmon can reach them. Now, I couldn't check Flanagan's source for this, as again it was a newspaper article and not a scientific paper, and it was behind a paywall. But I did find this food testing lab, which does a lot of food testing for a range of parameters for a range of clients in Europe. And this testing lab says a person who regularly consumes 300 grams of salmon a day could be ingesting as much as 15% of the acceptable daily intake of Ethoxyquin. And further down expands upon this. Is it safe to eat fish that have been given Ethoxyquin in their feed? Analysis of EQ in fillets from a number of farm species, cod, salmon, halibut and trout, has shown that EQ can contribute between 4 and 15% of the average daily intake on daily consumption of a 300 gram portion of fish. So if 300 grams of salmon can have between 4 and 15% of the ADI for Ethoxyquin, then at the worst, 15%, you'd have to eat 2 kilograms of salmon a day, and at the best, at 4%, you'd have to eat 7.5 kilograms of salmon a day. I think even Professor Maser might agree that even people who eat a lot of salmon do not eat 2 kilograms a day every day. So then Richard comes to one of his other tricks, which I call deceptive comparison, making you think that two things are the same when they're not. And on page 51 he says, in 2017 the EU banned the use of Ethoxyquin as a food additive, and its use in human food is similarly banned in Australia. But the majority of Tasmanian salmon continues to be produced using feed containing Ethoxyquin. Well, that's because it's banned for a human food additive. It's not banned as a salmon food additive, because by the time the salmon gets to our plates, the amount of Ethoxyquin is between 4 and 15% of the daily intake if you eat 300 grams. And to get the 15%, you'd have to eat 2 kilograms of salmon per day, which is simply not done. So, is it a fact? Not really.